I had just taken my evening tea when the bank called to alert me of a $38,000 charge to a luxury resort in Santorini. My hands trembled, not from age, but from a betrayal I never imagined would come from my own flesh and blood. My name is Joan Ellerby. I'm 67 years old, retired from teaching high school literature, and widowed for nearly a decade now. I live a quiet life in the suburbs of Minnesota. I clip coupons. I knit for church charities. I buy groceries on senior discount days. So imagine the punch to the gut when I found out my daughter, Meredith, spent nearly $95,000 on an extravagant international trip for her in-laws. And she used my credit card. No, she didn't steal my wallet or sneak into my house at night. No, she did it with full confidence, believing I would understand. She didn't even think she had to ask. That's the part that shattered me. It began 2 weeks before the charges. Meredith called, voice sugar sweet, asking how I was. She rarely calls. I should have known. Mom, I was wondering how's your Amex limit these days? She asked casually. I laughed, not knowing the gravity behind the question. Still high, I guess. What? She waved it off. Oh, just curious. You know, we've been thinking about surprising Adam's parents with a vacation. They've never left the country. Imagine them seeing Europe for the first time. Adam, her husband of 5 years, was a man I tolerated. He never mistreated Meredith, but he had a strange arrogance that rubbed me wrong. His parents, Ray and Deborah, were fine. Retired pharmacists who thought Pinot Grigio should be served with ice cubes. Pleasant in public, but always managing to make me feel like a poor church mouse when they hosted dinners. I chuckled again. That's lovely of you, but I'm sure you and Adam can handle it. Oh, we can't afford that kind of thing right now, she said too quickly. We're saving for a new roof, remember? I remember thinking, how thoughtful they are, even when strapped for cash. I had no idea Meredith was already crafting a plan that would light a match under every bond we ever had. 3 days after that call, I went to my bank to request paper statements. I prefer real envelopes, real ink, and real accountability. I don't do apps. That old-school mindset is exactly how Meredith got away with it for almost 2 weeks. When the charges began rolling in, I thought it was a mistake. A glitch. Maybe identity theft. $12,400 Emirates Airlines, business class. $38,700 Canaves OIA Suites, Santorini. $4,900 private chef experience, Greek Isles. $3,300 Louvre VIP tour package. $1,800 airport transfer limo. $6,500 Chanel boutique, Paris. The list went on. My breath caught. I checked the top of the page again. My name, my address, my card. I called Meredith. Her voice was casual, light. Oh, thank God you called. Mom, they're having the time of their lives. Deborah cried when she saw the Eiffel Tower. She said it was like living in a dream. I was silent. You used my card? There was a pause. Well, I mean, you weren't using it. And we'll pay you back, obviously. My voice broke. You didn't ask. I didn't think I had to, she said. That was it. The sentence that unraveled decades of motherhood in 4 seconds. I hung up. I didn't cry that night. I sat still in my recliner, staring at the fireplace mantel, the only source of warmth in a room that suddenly felt like winter. I thought about how I once stayed up all night sewing her prom dress when she changed her mind on the color 3 days before. How I skipped meals to send her to Yale. How I sold my wedding ring to cover her IVF treatment. Now she couldn't even ask. The next morning, I filed a report with the credit card company. The woman on the phone was kind. I see the charges, ma'am. Since the card wasn't physically stolen, we'd need to determine if there was fraud by misuse. This might require police documentation if it was done by a family member. Police. The word stung. My daughter. In handcuffs? No. But then again, why did she feel so entitled? I didn't file a police report. Instead, I froze the account. I called my lawyer, Gregory Holt, an old friend of my husband's, and explained the situation. Gregory whistled softly. Joan, this isn't just financial overreach. This is elder financial abuse. The word knocked the wind out of me. Abuse. But that's what it was, wasn't it? Meredith called again that evening, FaceTiming me from the balcony of a suite. Behind her, Ray and Deborah were toasting champagne. Adam waved, grinning like a fool. I knew you'd come around, Mom, she said. Wait till we get back, we'll sit down and go over how to make payments. I didn't respond. I ended the call. That night, I opened the cedar chest in my closet and pulled out the only savings my husband left behind, a stack of bonds and a trust document I had never touched. I wasn't a wealthy woman, but I wasn't poor either. I just lived like I was, to protect what little security I had left. That security was gone now. Or so I thought. The next morning, Gregory came over. We reviewed the trust. My husband, ever the planner, had set up clauses that could be enacted in the case of financial fraud even within the family. She just triggered this clause, Gregory said, tapping the paper. Technically, it gives you the right to remove her from the secondary beneficiary list. My hands were cold. I don't want to do that yet, I whispered. I want to give her one chance. One real chance to admit she was wrong. Gregory raised a brow. You think she'll apologize? No, I said, but I hope she will. 3 days later, they returned. They landed with glowing tans and luggage I could never afford in 10 years of budgeting. Meredith came over the same day, cheerful as ever. Let's talk repayment, shall we? She said, pouring herself a glass of my orange juice without asking. We can give you $400 a month, maybe? That's reasonable, right? Reasonable, I asked. She smiled. We're family. That word again. Family. I handed her a manila envelope with a typed letter. In it, I explained how I had consulted legal counsel, how the trust her father left was now being reassigned, how I was cutting her off from everything not out of anger, but out of necessity. She read it, then looked up, mouth agape. You're disinheriting me? No, I said gently. You disinherited yourself. Her eyes filled with tears, but not the kind I used to wipe from her cheeks as a child. These were selfish, indignant tears. She stood and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I sat in silence for a long while, and then I exhaled. The next chapter of this story would begin soon with lawyers, decisions, maybe even strangers hearing about our private life in a courtroom. But for now, I had reclaimed something precious. My dignity. The fallout wasn't immediate. For 3 days after she stormed out of my house, Meredith went silent. No texts, no calls, no angry emails. It was a void, and as much as I hated to admit it, that silence throbbed in my chest like a second heartbeat. I kept hoping she'd come back not to fight, but to say something real. Something from the girl I raised, not the woman who just saw me as a walking checkbook. But the apology never came. Instead, on the 4th morning, I heard a knock at the door. I opened it to find Adam standing there, arms crossed, jaw tight. He didn't wait for an invitation. Meredith is devastated, he said, stepping inside like he owned the place. You blindsided her. She stole from me. She didn't steal, Joan. It was a misunderstanding. $95,000 isn't a misunderstanding, I said, motioning to the thick manila folder now sitting on the coffee table, filled with printed bank statements, itemized receipts, and letters from the credit card company. That's months of planning, purchases, and lies. Adam walked over and picked up the folder, flipping through it. She was trying to give my parents a once-in-a-lifetime experience, he said, almost defensive. They've done so much for us. They helped with our wedding, our down payment, our IVF. Meredith thought you'd be proud of her generosity. Proud, I echoed, stunned. Proud that she funded her in-laws' vacation with my money? He said nothing. I sat down, suddenly exhausted. Adam, I know you don't see it, but this wasn't just money. This was trust, respect, and she shattered both. He looked down at the folder again, then back at me. His voice dropped. She's talking about getting a lawyer. I met his eyes. So am I. For a moment, something flickered in his face. Worry, regret. Then it hardened again, like wet cement drying in place. She won't let you do this, he said, turning toward the door. And neither will I. After he left, I didn't cry. I didn't even flinch. I walked to the window and watched him stomp to his Tesla, slam the door, and speed off. That evening, Gregory came back to finalize the trust revisions. As he signed papers at my dining room table, I asked the question that had been gnawing at me since Meredith left. Greg, do you think I'm doing the right thing? He paused, removed his reading glasses, looked me dead in the eyes. I think, he said slowly, that if this were anyone but your daughter, you'd have already pressed charges. That was true, and it hurt like truth always does. 2 days later, I got a certified letter in the mail. It was from a law firm in St. Paul representing Meredith and Adam. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside, a cease and desist letter, demanding I retract my financial fraud claims, accusing me of emotional manipulation and unlawful asset control, and worst of all, threatening to seek conservatorship if I was found to be mentally unstable or financially incompetent. My daughter was threatening to have me declared unfit to manage my own money. I couldn't believe it. I called Gregory immediately. "This is bad," I whispered into the phone. "They're trying to flip this around. Make me the villain." "I see this all the time," he said calmly. "Elder financial abuse cases often turn into reverse allegations when money's on the line. But we're going to respond fast and hard." He drafted a rebuttal that very night. Included copies of all communications, bank records, the full trust agreement, the amendment that removed Meredith from future benefits. But more than the legal papers, what struck me most was the realization gnawing at my gut. My daughter was gone. Not physically, not dead, but she had crossed a moral line so deep I wasn't sure we'd ever find each other again. The next week was a blur of paperwork, phone calls, and sleepless nights. My small kitchen turned into a legal war room. Gregory's paralegal came by twice to help organize documents. My neighbor, Ruth, brought over casseroles and offered quiet companionship while I cried into my tea. And then, the final straw came. A friend from church, Ellen, called me one afternoon. "Joan," she said gently, "I just wanted to let you know Meredith posted something on Facebook. It's public. I thought you should see it." I logged in, scrolled, and there it was. A photo of her, Adam, Ray, and Deborah standing in front of the Eiffel Tower, all smiles and expensive outfits. The caption read, "So grateful for this unforgettable trip, family is everything. Wish some people understood that instead of trying to tear us down, blessed, chosen family toxic is toxic." I stared at it, read it 3 times. My heart pounded like a drum inside a coffin. I clicked through the comments. "Deborah Ellerby, you deserved every minute of it, sweetheart. Some people only know how to count money, not memories." Adam Ellerby, "When others show you who they are, believe them. We know who's really family here." Meredith Ellerby, "Blood isn't thicker than betrayal. We stand by truth. Always." Each comment was like a knife. Public, intentional, cruel. She was rewriting the story for everyone to see, making me the villain, pretending she was the victim. I should have looked away, logged out, shut down. But instead, I commented. Just one sentence. "I hope someday your children don't treat you the way you treated me." It sat there for about 20 minutes before Meredith deleted the entire post and blocked me. That evening, I sat at my piano for the first time in months. My fingers found the keys like old friends. I played something slow, soft. I don't remember what it was, only that when the final note faded, so did my anger. In its place, resolve. This wasn't just about getting my money back anymore. It was about making sure no other parent felt this powerless, that no other aging mother was made to feel like a liability, like a wallet. The next morning, I called the local newspaper, asked for an op-ed editor, and I told them everything. Not with bitterness, with truth. By week's end, a piece titled, "When Your Child Becomes the Thief," ran on the front page of the lifestyle section. It didn't name Meredith, but the story was clear. And the reaction? Overwhelming. I received more than 100 letters in the mail over the next week. Handwritten notes from other parents, grandparents, even caregivers. People who had been taken advantage of by the ones they loved most. People who had stayed silent out of shame. I wasn't alone. The day after the article ran, I got a knock at the door. It was Meredith. She looked different, less polished. No makeup, hair in a bun, dark circles under her eyes. I didn't invite her in. She didn't ask. "I saw the article," she said quietly. I nodded. "Good." Her eyes welled up, but she didn't let the tears fall. "Do you hate me?" I wanted to say yes, but I couldn't. "No," I said. "I'm heartbroken. There's a difference." She nodded. "I just wanted to give them something they never had," she whispered. "I thought you'd understand that. You always made sacrifices." I leaned against the doorway. "Yes," I said, "but I chose those sacrifices. You took mine without asking. That's not the same." She looked away. "I didn't mean to lose you." "You didn't lose me," I said. "You threw me away." And with that, I closed the door. Winter arrived early in Minnesota that year. The leaves barely had time to bronze before the frost came. I wrapped myself in layers of sweaters, but the cold that pressed against my ribs wasn't from the wind, it was from Meredith's visit. I didn't hear from her again for weeks. No calls, no emails, no surprise visits. Adam never showed up again either. My lawyer, Gregory, said their silence was likely strategic, waiting to see if I would withdraw the legal protections and trust reassignment. But I didn't. Instead, I made a new habit. I walked every morning before sunrise. The air hurt my lungs a little, but I liked it. It made me feel alive, strong, harder to erase. And somewhere in that quiet solitude, I began to understand something painful and liberating. My daughter was no longer my responsibility, but maybe someone else was. I'd received a letter from a woman named June Baxter the week after the op-ed ran. She was 72. Her grandson had stolen her Social Security checks for nearly 2 years before she caught him. She was too ashamed to press charges. She just wanted to talk. So we did. We met at the library cafe. She wore a lavender scarf and tears on her lashes. I told her my story. She told me hers. And by the end of our coffee, she gripped my hands and whispered, "I thought I was crazy. Thank you for reminding me I wasn't." After that, something shifted in me. I contacted the editor of the paper again. Asked if I could write more, maybe a column, once a month. Call it something like Broken Bonds. A place for elder stories. Real ones. No shame. No sugarcoating. They said yes. That same week, I got a call from a local college professor who taught a class on intergenerational ethics. He asked if I'd speak to his students. I said yes. From there, the invitations trickled in senior centers, legal aid panels, local radio interviews. The more I shared, the more others did too. And somehow, slowly, the grief of losing my daughter became a different kind of flame, purpose. But the story didn't stay quiet for long. One evening in January, Gregory called. "You need to sit down," he said. "I'm already sitting." "There's a lawsuit," he said, sighing. "Meredith and Adam filed for defamation. They claim your article and public appearances have damaged their reputations and ability to earn income." I closed my eyes, not because I was surprised, but because I was tired. How much are they asking for? 200,000 in damages. Emotional distress. Loss of business opportunities. Legal fees. I almost laughed. Almost. Tell them I'll see them in court. And we did. The trial date was set for early March. By then, the story had spread far beyond Minnesota. A major morning show reached out. A podcast producer called. The case had become a flashpoint: a daughter suing her elderly mother for defamation after being accused of elder financial abuse. It wasn't just news. It was war. Court was colder than I imagined. Not temperature-wise, emotionally. Meredith barely looked at me. Adam smirked often. Their lawyer was slick, smooth-talking, well-dressed. He painted a picture of a sweet daughter framed by a senile and vindictive mother desperate for attention. They played video clips from my panel talks, quoted my column lines, even showed the Facebook comment I'd written under Meredith's post. "She's turning this into a campaign," their lawyer said. "A crusade to vilify her daughter and son-in-law over what was at worst a misunderstanding." Then it was our turn. Gregory stood calmly. His tone was steady, slow, like waves smoothing out a storm. He showed the financial records. Every charge. Every pattern of concealment. He reminded the jury that Meredith never once asked for permission. Then he called me to the stand. I had written down what I wanted to say, but once I sat there under the lights, under their eyes, I didn't need paper. I told the truth. Not just about the money. About the betrayal. About what it's like to watch your child turn you into a transaction. About how being old doesn't mean being weak and how often those two things are confused by everyone, even family. "I am not angry," I said at the end, voice trembling. "I'm disappointed that the girl I raised to be generous, thoughtful, and honest became someone who thought she could lie and still be loved the same way." Meredith looked down. Adam didn't. The jury deliberated for less than 5 hours. They ruled in my favor. The defamation claim was denied. The court agreed I had spoken truthfully and in the public interest. Not only that, but Meredith and Adam were ordered to repay $94,672.33 in damages within 2 years, or risk civil garnishment. They didn't look at me when the verdict was read. They stood up and left. Just like that. I sat there, gripping Gregory's hand, shaking like a leaf. I didn't smile. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like a funeral. After the trial, my life changed in quieter ways. People started recognizing me at the grocery store. An older man stopped me in the baking aisle, and said, "My son took out a mortgage in my name." I thought I was the only one. A woman at the library left a sticky note in the book return slot. "Thank you for telling the story. I was too scared to write." I kept writing, kept speaking, but I never once wrote Meredith's name again. Not in columns, not in talks, not even in my journal. She was gone, and I had finally accepted that some wounds don't close, they just scar. One spring afternoon, nearly a year after the whole nightmare began, I received a small envelope in the mail. It had no return address. Inside was a single photograph. It was a baby, wrapped in a blue blanket. Chubby cheeks, bright eyes. On the back, written in faint ink, "His name is Caleb. He's ours. I thought you should know." My heart twisted. I didn't know whether to smile or sob. A grandchild. I had a grandson. There was no apology, no invitation, just a photo and a name. But it was something. Maybe even the beginning of something. I stared at that photo for hours. Then I placed it gently on my piano, not as a shrine, not as a promise, just as a question. And for the first time in a year, I didn't feel only anger when I thought of Meredith. I felt hope, just a flicker. But sometimes, a flicker is all you need. I kept Caleb's photo by the piano for weeks. Some mornings I'd glance at it while pouring coffee, wondering if his eyes looked more like Meredith's or Adam's. Other times, I'd stare at it for minutes searching for something deeper, maybe forgiveness, or at least understanding. He didn't ask for any of this. He didn't know the story. He was just born into it. And as the Minnesota spring thawed into soft green light and early tulips, something began to shift inside me. Maybe I was too old to fix what broke between me and my daughter. But maybe I wasn't too old to build something new with him. I didn't call, didn't show up at their door. Instead, I wrote a letter. "Dear Meredith, I got your picture. Thank you. I won't lie and say it erased what happened, but it gave me something I didn't know I needed. A reminder that love can still surprise us, even after betrayal. I don't know what you want from me. Maybe nothing. But I want you to know this. I will never stop hoping you find your way back to yourself." To the kind, fierce, imaginative girl who used to build cities out of cardboard boxes in the living room and cry when the bird feeders went empty. If you ever decide to come home, truly home, I'll be here. Not as your bank, not as your babysitter, as your mother. And maybe, someday, as a grandmother. Love, Mom. I didn't send it right away. I rewrote it 4 times. I removed the harsher lines. I tried to balance truth with grace. And finally, in early May, I mailed it. No response. Weeks passed. June arrived, and I spent it the way I'd grown to love: writing, walking, teaching community seminars on elder protection and financial boundaries. The sessions became unexpectedly therapeutic. People cried, laughed, shared horror stories, and then clung to one another like survivors. We were survivors. In late June, I got another letter. Handwritten, neat cursive, light blue ink. "Dear Mom, I read your letter 5 times before I could write this one. I'm not proud of what I did. The truth is, I haven't been proud of myself in a long time. I got caught up in trying to prove something to Adam's family, to the world, to myself. I thought if I could give more, I'd be worth more. I used you. I betrayed your trust. And I'm sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me. But I hope you'll let me try to become someone you could forgive someday. If you'd ever like to meet Caleb, we'd like that. Meredith." I read it twice before I let myself breathe. And then I cried. It wasn't perfect. It didn't undo the damage. But it was the first real thing she'd said to me in over a year. The next Saturday, I called the number on the envelope. She answered on the second ring. "Hi, Mom." Her voice cracked on the word mom. Just a little, but enough to split me open. "Hi, sweetheart." We talked for over an hour. It was awkward, stilted, careful, but there was warmth. She told me Caleb had just turned 8 months old. He had 3 teeth and a laugh that sounded like wind chimes. He liked pureed peaches and crawling under the table when no one was looking. Do you want to meet him?" she asked. "Yes," I said. More than anything. We agreed to meet in a neutral Plasmy church on a weekday afternoon. Quiet. Familiar. Safe. I arrived early. Meredith was late. But when she walked in carrying a chubby baby boy in soft denim overalls, my breath caught. He had my husband's eyes. That same bright, mischievous sparkle. She handed him to me without a word. And for a moment, time disappeared. The lawsuits, the pain, the Facebook posts. None of it mattered. Only this child. Warm, wiggly, alive in my arms. He giggled, reached for my glasses. I let him pull them off. Meredith watched silently, and then she said, "He knows you." I nodded. Maybe he always did. We spent 2 hours together that day. No promises, no dramatic apologies, just slow, cautious reconnection. I didn't push. She didn't retreat. We ended with a quiet agreement. We'd try. Carefully. Slowly. But we'd try. That summer, I babysat Caleb for the first time while Meredith went to a dental appointment. 2 hours turned into 3. I didn't mind. He fell asleep on my chest, his tiny hand curled around my thumb. When she returned, she stood in the doorway and whispered, "You look just like you did when you held me." I smiled. Some things don't change. She didn't say anything else, just nodded. But her eyes were wet. By fall, I'd written 6 more articles and been invited to Washington, D.C. to speak on a national elder fraud prevention panel. I nearly said no, but Meredith encouraged me. "You have a voice, Mom. Use it." That was the first time she'd called me Mom, without strain in her voice. We weren't whole yet, but we were healing. Thanksgiving came, and to my surprise, Meredith invited me to their home. I brought a cranberry pie in my nervous hands. Deborah and Ray weren't there. Adam answered the door, but offered nothing more than a stiff nod. That was fine. I wasn't there for them. I was there for Caleb. He ran toward me the moment he saw Minna walking, now shouting, "Nana! Nana!" I knelt to the floor and let him knock me over with joy. The house smelled of rosemary and baked yams. Meredith had hung a hand-drawn picture of a turkey on the fridge with a scribbled, childish signature that said Caleb. He wasn't old enough to write yet, but maybe she'd helped him. Or maybe she just wanted me to see my name on something again. After dinner, as Caleb slept on the couch, Meredith walked over and sat beside me. "I know I still owe you a lot," she said softly. "Money mostly, but more than that, trust." I didn't speak. I let her say what she needed to say. "I'm not perfect, but I want to be better. For him. For you. For me." I placed my hand over hers. "You're trying. That's what matters." She nodded. A tear slid down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. I drove home in silence that night, snowflakes swirling gently against the windshield. And for the first time in 2 years, I didn't feel the weight of grief pressing on my chest. I felt peace. Not the kind you earn from winning a courtroom battle. The kind that sneaks in quietly through forgiveness, through resilience, through the innocent laughter of a grandson who doesn't care about the past. Only the present. Only now. Epilogue. It's been 2 years since Meredith used my credit card, since she betrayed me in a way I thought I'd never recover from. And yet I am still standing. She's repaid over half of what she owes me. The rest, I'm less concerned about now. We see each other every other week. She never asks for money. I never offer. We share recipes. We trade stories. We're not the same as before. But maybe that's a good thing. Sometimes love has to break apart to come back stronger. I still write. Still advocate. Still open my door to women like June who need to be heard, held, believed. But now, there's a different joy waiting for me when I get home. A small pair of shoes by the front door. A finger painting on my fridge. A voice that calls out from the living room. "Nana, look what I made." And every time, I answer the same way. I kneel down, open my arms wide, and say, "Let me see, sweetheart. I'm listening."